Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all here. I'm your host for today. I will be taking care of the presentations and making sure everything runs smooth. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Charlotte Sjödell, and I'm a senior lecturer at Lund University. It's super nice to see everyone here. We have a lot of alumni. I have colleagues here. We have students here, company representatives, and it's super nice that you've all managed to get here on time. As you know, we have not far from here, Lund University has Ingvar Kamprad Design Center, where we are teaching design students, and we have two programs, one in bachelor and one master. And on the 4th of June, we will have an exam exhibition with a graduation ceremony, and you're most welcome to join that. So keep track. You can always follow me on LinkedIn, and I will post something there. And on our website, you could also see some examples from the latest exhibition that we had in Milan. So that's about the school. And today, when we're talking about AI, I'm not, many of you might be familiar with Ray and Charles Eames and their work. But what many people don't know is not only did they make a lot of furniture and products, but they actually did a lot of media production. And one of the things that they did is this film called Power of 10. And if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube, and you can go out and watch it. And what it does, it goes out from this blanket in Chicago, and it zooms out every second by 10 square meters. And we end up going all the way out in space. And after a while, when we've been going out in space, it turns back and it comes back to the blanket, and it goes into reverse through the hand of one of the people and goes internally until it gets to the smallest little atom. And I find that AI is very much like that, that we are forced to think in different layers and dimensions, and it's so big that it's quite difficult for us to keep track of where to start. And I think everyone needs to be rightly concerned. We wake up every morning to this kind of scare news that we soon won't even exist. And hopefully, we can still push it away a bit and say maybe it won't be today. And then we got this other problem that they're building data centers, ruining farmland and putting up big places that no one takes away the water. But then again, it's not in my backyard, so I guess I can ignore it a little bit. Well, now the problem is that we have these warnings about surveillance. Ooh, and this I find a bit scary. I hope this won't happen to me. And then many of you have probably seen on LinkedIn this Anthropic job report. It's been criticized, of course, but we still can worry about who will actually have a job. And I would, advise anyone that can to go into nursing or beauty care and stuff like this, because you won't be replaced by AI as easily. And of course, now it's getting close to home. This is the local newspaper, and there we can read that everyone is really concerned about democracy and if they can determine what's correct or not coming out of AI. So all of that, and then all of a sudden I have to figure out how can I get the lion to have that specific blue collar that I want to have, right? So that's in quite a lot of detail. So with that said, today it's about AI and industrial design. So we will look at what can AI do for our industry. And as much as we like to cover all of these topics, we will focus on what are the learnings that we've done since last year. Some of you were here last year. And some of the presenters are coming back to show what they've done in the past year, which is great. And then we have some new presenters. And what the hope is, of course, is that we will see some really real benefits out of this. And one area where we can look at the potential of AI is, of course, within healthcare. And the hope is that we in the future could maybe mitigate some diseases or prevent or treat some diseases that we today have difficulty with. So with that note, I will introduce our first speaker. And this is Maria Greva. And she is flown in for this event, which we're very grateful for. And she's the Director of Design Language Systems at Philips Healthcare. So welcome very much, Maria.
It's really great to be in this space. It's a very beautiful museum, and it's like really great the chance to see how you get from sketches to literally masterpieces. We live in a time when the machines can see more than we can, they can process way faster than we can, and they can make decisions before we do. And this poses questions that are going beyond technology. It's in this age of AI abundance, like lots of new great exponential growth of AI, we can really build very capable systems. And now the question is, how can we ensure that the system will serve the ones that really depends on those systems? How can we provide better care for more people? And this talk is about craft of designing systems that care in this age of AI abundance. And for that, let me first tell you a story to set up the context. Imagine yourself entering the modern ICUs. You know, the lights are dimmed, people are moving with quiet focus. Everything in that space, whether it's the lighting, the layout, the acoustic, everything is really designed to give you this feeling of safety. You know, for people who lying on those beds and for the families who are looking through the hallways, safety is everything. Like, you know, safety is paramount. And now for a contrast, look at the screens. You have like 47 alerts in the last hour. This is not hypothetical. This is your normal Tuesday night in a busy hospital. If you start Googling and research about alarm fatigue of nurses, you can learn that they have like on average 450 alerts per patient in a day, 450. And 80% to even 90% really don't require some clinical action that you have to do. So to come back to these signals, they all designed to show something that is relevant in the system. However, when everything is urgent, nothing really is at that point of time. So suddenly, those clinicians, those nurses who are standing in front of these screens, they are overloaded with information. We just designed a lot of noise for them. There is this nice saying from the writer of The Little Prince, Saint-Exupéry, who says, what is essential is invisible to the eye. We have spent literally a decade to have more comprehensive technology. We have more data, we have like more signals, more features. And did we succeed? Well, you can say technically yes. But now the quietest rooms in the hospital really are having the loudest screens, and we have designed that noise ourselves. More data, it's not equal to more understanding. The more data you try to bring, that brings to more pressure. There is more to read, there is more to interpret. There is decisions which are stacking on top of each other so that you can make a choice. So the design question is not anymore, should I display these things? The question is like, this discipline, what should I withhold? And this is not a discipline that our industry has, and the skill that has practiced enough. Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist who won Nobel Prize for economics, talks about two systems of thinking. System one is fast, it's intuitive, it's automatic. The one that kicks in when you're under pressure. System two is like slow, deliberate, and analytical. And when we overload people, it's actually, we are not pushing them to think any harder. Actually, we push them to overload, and they start filtering information. They start omitting information. And when it comes to healthcare, this can be a question of life and death. So let's now shift, but when you think of it, all these situations that I just described are happening in any industry, in any industrial design, whether you go into control rooms or cockpits, wherever people have to make decisions under pressure, you have the same thing. Now we're going to shift to talk about two kinds of AI. We are talking about AI, which is in the products, so the intelligence which is embedded what people are using, and AI for building the products. So that's the tools and everything that the builders are using to create those products. Both, on one hand, they look differently, but actually there are lots of similar design principles, and the values that we encode in one is eventually shaping the other one. When we talk about AI in the products, we talk about the algorithm that can signal you a risk. We are talking about model that can interpret, for example, X-ray scan. When you talk about AI for building, these days we have like really great abundance every day, all kind of new tool that is happening. There are all kind of AI prototyping tools that can help you to do more AI coding assistance, just name it. Both are kind of shifting the bottlenecks. Suddenly the execution and making becomes way more easier, and the pressure moves towards judgment. Should we do and why we should do this? And empathy for us has to be built in every touch. We talked about that nurses, that ICU. All these nurses who are standing hours and hours on their feet, 3 o'clock in the morning, they really have to make critical decisions. And this is where design matters, in that exhaustion, that gap between your exhaustion and making an action. Now, let's talk about what happens for AI for building products. I think it's an exciting period. We are in the middle of complete transformation, what's getting possible for building products. I mean, I've been around long as part of design language systems, and it's really become a playbook. We are continuously improving and getting better. So we got like better tools. You go from Sketch to Figma. We have design tokens. We have design ops. We are getting better system. We get more consistency at scale, better handoffs between the designers and the developers. And for the long time, that was pretty much enough. And if you were able, to deliver quality at speed, that was your winning edge. But this has changed, and it changed very fast. AI walked into the room. Suddenly, the timeline between your idea and seeing it in action simply compressed. And imagine if you have like a sketch on your whiteboard, or you draw it on a piece of napkin and you take it with your mobile. If you take it in all these AI tools, you can create testable prototypes in minutes. Previously, I had to think, hey, I have to get to my development team if they have space to help me to check some of more ideas. Now you can just do it. And you can see these ideas can become experiment just like that, instantaneously. And AI is kind of really compressing the product life cycle. It's completely changes the way we shape our work. So now I'm going to say, probably pronounce somebody badly. I didn't realize there is Erik Brynolfsson, which is Swedish, which I didn't know, and I apologize if I screw up the name. But there is this great paper, and he talks about Turing trap. He talks about very often when we think about the human task that machine can automate, we immediately think about like the biggest circle, like there is all kind of tasks that we can do, designers, developers, any white-collar worker, and there is a subset, the smaller circle, which shows this is a subset that can be automated. But suddenly there is way more interesting new task that he talks, tasks that didn't exist before, and suddenly in collaboration with AI, which can take different role. It can take a role of a director, it can take a role of a student, a teacher. Suddenly there is way more that we can do. And design process used to be, optimized through years, and it was very linear. You have your research, you do your ideation, you do a prototype, you build, you ship, you test. Suddenly it becomes an expedition. Like there is way more possibilities, and we are in that process of discovering how should look like our design processes. The cost of creation is going towards zero. As I said, you can have that idea, you can see it very fast, how does it look like? And that makes very different discussion to whomever you talk about your ideas. You can generate instantaneously. You can do prototypes in minutes. You can build from intent. The last one is very powerful because, for example, if you think about this ICU, I can go with this AI prototyping tool and I can say, hey, I would like to have a patient dashboard for these 30 nurses that I'm having. I want to see their vital signs at a glance, and if I'm as a nurse working next to their bed, I should work hands-free. All this, you can already create your first iteration of executable prototype. This is really amazing, actually. That was really not possible previously. But now this bottleneck is shifting. When making is easy, instantaneously, it's not the question anymore, can we build this? That's doable, actually. Almost anything is doable. But now it's like, can we make this? Is this the right decision? Is the right thing that we want to do? Is it really going to help that nurse which is standing at 3 o'clock in the morning? You go back first from what the end users is doing, and you're deciding what to do. And this requires like judgment, alignment, value systems. Very often people think like AI, it's actually simplifying things. On the contrary, it doesn't reduce things, it doesn't reduce complexity, it's actually amplified. Suddenly, from one valid input, you can create multiple valid outputs. And you have to decide which of these things I should take. These are all good valid outputs. So the question now is very interesting. What happens to the makers? What happens to the builders when everything is easy to be made these days? Usually people go through several phases. When you start working with AI, you know, things that were taking you maybe days or weeks, suddenly you can do it in minutes and hours. So you think like, I'm done by large, this is like really nice life, and I'm having this superpower. This doesn't last very long. The reality kicks in very fast. Everybody is having the same superpower. So suddenly your competition is going to ship something in a week, and you're going to ship it in 3 months. You're losing the game. Your product manager comes, and suddenly he or she themselves can create those prototypes, and they ask you, well, why do I need a designer or developer now? I can do it myself. The other part, the start, you go deeper and deeper using AI in building your products. As I said, you have like from one valid output, you can create multiple possibilities. So now you have that possibility of choice and deciding what should it happen. But if you go in the new world, for example, this agentic world, then you're starting even to direct multiple design processes in parallel. So your cognitive load, it just doesn't decrease, it actually starts to explode. Lots of the people that I work, then on the end of the day are really exhausted because there is a lot that you can do and you push yourself harder and harder. There is maybe one other interesting thing that is happening, and it's like food for thought. What happens to taste? You know, taste is built through experience, through time, through suffering, when you build something and you discover this is working, this is not working. But what happens to the taste when now suddenly it's very easy to make something good enough? I mean, something that I worry about these days, something to think about it. We are still in this process. What does it mean to be a builder in this new age of AI? Last month, I've been to 2 conferences. One was for designers, the other one was for developers, and everybody is trying to share their wisdoms, what they have learned in this age of building with AI. And you can hear all kinds of extremes. You can hear like, AI is just a distraction. It's a hype. You can hear the other extreme as well, like it's coming job apocalypse. We are all going to lose our jobs. And there is, of course, lots of things in between. I mean, if you take to those 2 extremes, that takes away of responsibility from us. To me, the situation is kind of simpler. In a sense, we are in the moment of making. So the people who are designing and building with AI, building AI products, this is the ones who are shaping what does it mean to be a maker in the age of AI. And if you sit on the sidelines, in that case, you will get the defaults and whatever the large language model is telling you or the platform builders are telling you. So I think it's really good to be involved and to shape what becomes of being a builder in this age of AI. Now let's shift the attention to the last part about AI in the products, where our judgment becomes that experience that can help someone, can save someone, or even fail someone. And I'm going again through our story, through the ICU, through that nurse, so that we can imagine what does it mean. But I can imagine that all of you have some similar situation in whatever you design, because any complex systems have similar situations. Interfaces used to be a places where you go to. You go to your application, you navigate to screens, click before you can execute the action. Now it's a system that you can talk to. You can express your intent and the system can execute for you. I'm going to talk about 3 shifts and 3 design principles that we see that happening in the products, and I'm going to illustrate the old world and the new world, and also go through our nurse to see it bit how does it look like. The first is moving from navigation to intent. The old world, it feels like you are running through a track and jumping over hindrances. You have to go through this menu, that menu before I can execute something. Now I can come to, a clinical room and I can say, hey, set the configuration of these screens because I cannot see it well, etc. I can really express my intent and it can happen instantaneously. Think about the real situation. It's like really 3 o'clock in the morning. This nurse is getting some alerts. She's getting flagged by the system that maybe there is an early sepsis. She is getting it with 87% confidence. And she has seconds before she is going to get the next alarm. And this is the reality for the nurses. Now, how does it feel what we have designed for them today? She has to go 1 gazillion clicks, she has to go multiple screens, and it takes her minutes before she can make her clinical decision. She has to carry her own logic, and then she has to navigate through the system before she can make her decision. When you read the statistic, you will see that the clinicians and doctors, 40% of their time, they have to spend in administrative job. And why they went into healthcare? Because they wanted to care about people. So this is how it feels today. Now imagine the new world. She can go and talk to the system. Hey, what's happening with the status on bed 7? Are we dealing with sepsis? Single sentence, and the system will do the rest. And it's a question of seconds where you can get those answers. The system can go even further. If you have predictive analytics, it can also see there is a potential sepsis. What's the next steps? So the system, again, even thinks further with you. The interactions can become way more human. Suddenly, we have way more things on our disposal. You have gaze, voice, gesture, camera, context. Imagine that nurse, like looking at bed 7, the system knows her load, knows her patients, knows their history, and can make connection between all these things and can give her suggestion. That's really something incredible. But then it boils, can I trust this? And it's not about the pixels, it's not about the layout on the screen. Trust is not a feature, it's like literally a foundation. And designs, without even realizing, with huge number of design decisions, we are influencing the trust of the end users. We are not anymore there to, go design navigation or flows and screens. The new world is about designing decisions. This is way more complex, abstract than previously. How somebody that has to make a critical decisions to help them. That's very different. Let's move to the second shift. Now we go from static to dynamic user interfaces. The interfaces were same for everyone. So imagine that you have this nurse that is working night shift in the ICU, and you have this outpatient doctor in the clinic who has less patient, different load. Why should we show them the same interface? There's no need for that. Like, this is how it looks for her today. 8 rooms, 11 patients, quite some number of alerts every single shift. And she's thinking, like, this was not made for me. It doesn't get my patient. It doesn't get my priority. It doesn't understand my time and my load. This feels like you are invisible, like the system is processing you. And now with the new world, let's make a contrast. The AI can build this view for her, that moment. That screen didn't exist 5 minutes ago. It was generated for this nurse, specifically for her shift, for her load, and what was going on at that point of time. That feels being seen. And we can go even further with the third design principles. We are going from operating software to directing agents. Instead of operating individual tools, now suddenly this nurse can have multiple agents who are taking care of the planning, of monitoring and observing, and together she can make decisions how she take the direction. The machines can add the context without being asked. They can look at it, the trajectory of multiple patients, and give that knowledge to her. And now suddenly in seconds, with a conversation, not a command, she can make a clinical decision. This feels like you are having partnership with the machine. And if we zoom out from our nurse, access to care is like under pressure everywhere. We have aging population, we have shortage of staff, we also have decreasing budgets. So what we build there as a healthcare is essential infrastructure. And it makes a difference if we help how somebody will get the right treatment or maybe fall between the cracks. To repeat the things that I just stated, we talk about these 3 shifts. We talked about going from navigation to intent, where you can, instead of going through multiple screens to decide what will be your action, now you can express your intent and the system will execute. How does it feel this emotionally? You go from burden to flow suddenly. The second is going from the static to dynamic user interfaces. It can be generated for the moment, for your situation, this UI. And then suddenly you go from this emotion from invisibility to being seen. And the last one, we go from human-computer interaction to this very exciting new agentic user experience world where you can build, instead of directing individual tools, you are really interacting and having partnership with the agents. And that goes from isolation to partnership. AI is simply not longer a feature. It becomes a design material. In the same way, like typography is shaping how we read, or how spaces makes us feel, or how motion makes us understand something. Like AI helps us how we learn, how we understand, how we think. And each material can be used beautifully or carelessly. And it's not the quality of the design material. The designer's deciding what's going to be that quality. The machine can generate, we can execute, we can extrapolate, we can predict. There are many great possibilities suddenly, but only humans can care. Only human can feel that obligation and responsibility at 3 o'clock in the morning to get the right decision. Only humans can feel the moral responsibility between taking an easier or more harder path for something. We really have to protect the humanity. We should not automate humanity out of the equation. We should design and build systems that give chances human to be more human. And this leads to better decisions that will bring us to better care. Sounds simple. It is simple, but it's not easy. Because every design choice, every interaction, every algorithm will make a difference of how somebody makes a decision, or maybe we fail them. So tomorrow night, when this nurse comes in front of these screens, we either help her or fail her. That is on us. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was really insightful. And while Tim is setting up, I think this here we can see a good example of how AI is integrated both in the process of creation, but also in the products itself. And we will continue now with the next speaker. And Trym has been looking at the creation phase. So I'm very happy to have you here today. So Trym is a PhD candidate from the Oslo School of Architecture and Design in Oslo. And Trym has a background in industry where he's been working in both with vehicles and product design. And he's also been working in the early stages of Viscom. So he has a lot of good experience. And you also research a lot about form giving, which I think is a very interesting topic for everyone who's working with design. And it's great. We've been working together for a year, and this morning was the first time I met him. So I was happily discovering how tall he was, because we've just been working in Zoom on the same eye level. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. Is this working? Yeah. So as Charlotte was saying, I have worked previously with industrial design for several years. I also worked with AI in various forms since around 2018. I was early part of Viscom, this startup that is doing is focused on industrial design and AI. I no longer work with them, but now I'm working on my PhD in form giving and industrial design. So kind of the focus of my PhD is on design processes and looking into how we are teaching and how we're doing form giving in the industrial design process. And of course, as part of this, AI becomes very, very important, as it is a kind of transformative tool on how we are building and making, essentially. So the background of the study is, I just want to mention this, I think all of you know the kind of current status, but the current promise of AI is essentially this kind of jump from a simple napkin sketch into almost like a finished 3D model. And essentially now we have the tools that we can really make this jump from this simple sketch to a kind of high fidelity render, which for me it would take many, many hours to make that in Photoshop or to 3D model it. So we can kind of jump across these steps and also now in terms of 3D modeling and so on. And I think we are also in the stage where technology is evolving very quickly. So every month there is kind of new tools coming up and also making it easier to kind of use this output. For example, 3D models can now output in a better topology than before. So it means that we can now have models that are actually editable, which only some months ago we didn't have that as simple example. And just to kind of set the stage a little bit about what I'm kind of talking about when I talk about generative AI in the context of industrial design today. I'm focusing on large language models, so that means text-to-text, also in terms of coding applications and so on. It's image generation, and then you have kind of a large group of other modalities, which means 3D generation, sound generation, video generation, and so on. So it's kind of models for generating content in some sort that is valuable for industrial designers. And this talk is part of an ongoing research on generative AI in industrial design. So it's part of a kind of a larger study that I'm working with Charlotte on doing, looking into how professional industrial designers are working. And as part of this, we're looking into how they're working with AI in their processes, essentially. This is also kind of an early presentation of a paper that will be presented at the DRS conference later, so it will also become a peer-reviewed paper at some point. So as I said, I've been working with Charlotte. So Charlotte is first and foremost a fantastic industrial designer and educator. I think a lot of you guys know her, and also the motor behind this whole event. Together we have been looking into then how these industrial designers are working with AI. And the scope of the study has been 20 expert industrial designers, and they have an experience between 8 and 40 years. So all of them are kind of at the senior level or above, or managerial level. So I think that brings some interesting context where they kind of understand the design process quite thoroughly. They also understand strategically how these tools will be implemented in a good way, essentially. And the study has been through interviewing these people generally through Zoom or also in-person interviews. And they also come from different countries, different backgrounds. Some are freelancers, some are consultants, some are in-house designers. So they have kind of different perspectives on this. And I hope that this can give a little bit of a kind of a ground or a context for the next speakers that will be showing kind of a little bit more technically how they are implementing it, as far as I understand. So how is generative AI currently used? So first of all, the question is maybe why it's used. And what we found from talking to people is the main thing for everyone is basically speed. So it's like reducing speed, increasing speed, reducing time to market. So for in-house designers, that means reducing their R&D times, basically, so the development times. By reducing them in the design process, you can basically make a cheaper product, you can be more competitive, and you have kind of in-market advantages. For the consultants, it means to be more efficient with your billable hours. So it means that you can, both in terms of competing on price and also in terms of being more efficient as a consultancy, essentially, so you can reduce the time. And then there is access to knowledge and skill, which is more on the level of, for example, early talking to an engineer or getting information about, for example, injection molding processes or something, where before you would have to reach out to an expert or you would have to read papers. And this could be like an early stage. So I feel a lot of the people we talk to, they have an understanding of the limitations of this, that it can be hallucinating and so on, but it can provide them an early input for further investigations. One thing quite interesting also is that quality was rarely mentioned as a reason for adoption. It was mainly about kind of speed, and it was mainly about getting access to these maybe knowledges that they otherwise wouldn't have. And then, so here it says also top-down pressure. So in a lot of the cases, it's also the management pushing to implement this because of the time savings. Or there can be some individuals in the organizations that are interested in using it and pushing it as well. And then I just wanted to show you this kind of map. So this is a mapping we have done. It's a kind of a simplified model of the design process, let's say. As we all know, the design process is not a linear process. It's way more complicated than this. But what we have tried to do is try to understand, okay, where do these industrial designers kind of use generative AI in various ways. And what we see is that people use it quite a lot in the early stages, and increasingly so, for analyzing data, using it for insight in terms of, as I said, the technical aspect, but that can also be closer to market analysis, for example, or data processing. People also use it for kind of storyboarding or generating a kind of a large volume of ideas, or making kind of variation around an idea or something like that. And these are kind of tasks that are, in a way, they're kind of low-risk tasks where the AI doesn't really take a decision based on this, but it's giving you kind of the starting point for inquiry, or you can also then take this information, go to an expert, then ask the questions and so on. So, and then in the kind of the second stage of the process, let's say in the 3D modeling and the design refinement phase, this is where we saw that the designers really didn't use AI a lot. And this has to do with the engagement with the material. So in sketching, in 3D modeling, you are kind of in a reflexive process of making and making decisions and going back and forth. And this is where a lot of people said that they're kind of losing control from using AI. And then in the end, once the design is kind of gone to production, or we're kind of nearing the end, or we are at the stage where we have to present it to like internal stakeholders to get the sell-in or something, it was used quite a lot for kind of storyboarding, hero shots, animations, this kind of presenting the final product rather than making the final product. So some of the core issues. So as I said, it's a loss of control, basically. So by skipping some processes, designers felt like they were losing control over their kind of micro decisions in the process. So that means, in this case, for example, it means that in the kind of original process, it means to kind of sketch, modeling, Photoshop, there's all these kind of stages in which you are not only kind of moving the design forward or making representations, but you are actually making decisions in every part of this process. So when you make a Photoshop render, where you make a model, you are not just making the design, you are making decisions, iterating, and so on. So the issue a lot of designers felt was that they're kind of skipping this process. And secondly, by skipping a lot of these processes, you would get this kind of fidelity gap, which means that a non-designer would look at the finished image and think, oh, this is a finished design. It looks kind of finished, which kind of means that the communication needs to happen on the right level of fidelity. So that, for example, a dirty Photoshop sketch, you can understand what has been assessed and what the intention is behind. But if it looks finished, you don't really understand what has been considered and what has not been considered in a way. So this was really a big finding and a core reason why a lot of designers did not use it in that kind of critical stage of micro decisions and making. So this is a kind of a quote from one of the participants where they discussed that in sketching, you can find something that opens up the design. You can like find this kind of special corner, whereas in kind of generating, you don't really have that ability, or you have to kind of make a loop where you're kind of sketching on top or looking deeper into the problem after generating as well. So it is probably possible to solve it as well, but it's a kind of a core issue. Other worries and hurdles that people were discussing was intellectual property and data security, especially for larger companies. This is a big thing. So this leads to having to make sandbox systems, running the AIs locally, for example, or having good kind of data protection deals with the companies that you're working with. Lack of training of the designers, access to tools and infrastructure, and key one as well is this kind of the designers having an existing workflow, not wanting to change it, and they have a kind of methodological inertia where things are working the way it is and they don't want to change it, regardless of the potential speed benefit that they might get. Yeah, so the context of adoption, in most cases what we saw is that although it was like a top-down pressure to adopt, so the management would say, we need to use AI, we need to speed up everything. It was the individual designers that held the responsibility for upskilling and to do this within their kind of existing time. And this can be kind of a problem, and especially like for managers, I really urge you to consider this to empower your designers, not only by saying that they should use AI, but giving them the infrastructure and tools to do so. Two other kind of approaches we found was the AI lab. So especially in larger companies, they would maybe set aside 1 or 2 people that would work 100% on developing AI tools specifically for their company and for their use case. And in this case, they would have a kind of a knowledge hub, which I think we will talk a little bit about later as well, where other designers can also kind of gain knowledge and revolve around. And another approach, which was used a little bit less, was a kind of distributed community of practice, which means setting up channels for discussion, setting up forums where designers could share their knowledge kind of in a structured way, which goes beyond only the individual designers having a responsibility, but you kind of build a framework or structure that they can learn from each other. So what are the actionable takeaways from this talk? So first of all, embrace the friction. Embrace the friction of the models. Don't go to ChatGPT and write, make me a shoe. Try to understand what are the tools you're using, how do you use them, use kind of more advanced tools, maybe Comfy UI, maybe tweak the parameters, understand what do the prompts do, what about the input, how do you use a different sketch. So you have to kind of go beyond this kind of simplified way of use in a way. So embrace the friction. Secondly, mind the fidelity gap. So when you're communicating using AI-generated information, understand what fidelity are you communicating on. So show the concept on the level in which you have kind of considered it, where it has been intentional, and maybe even try to make it look more sketchy if you are in that part of the process, essentially. Then encourage cognitive engagement in use. So that means not prompting and being finished with it, but take the sketch on top of it, make a physical model, engage with the material beyond only the kind of simplified text to image or text to model generation. And then lastly, build communities, not courses. So our recommendation in a sense is to don't only go to like a 2-week course, but try to find peers, try to engage with communities, and for the managers out there, try to build internal communities of knowledge and practice so that you can kind of share this knowledge going forward, because I think this is a common challenge. How do we use this? How do we approach it? It's also specific for each company, each situation, so we have to kind of learn from each other essentially, and I think this is a good start of that essentially. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tim. That's really great. As it turns out from the study that we made, we asked, one of the questions we asked was, do you read research? And most people said, no, not so much. And we asked, how do you get the information? And it was everything from news articles to LinkedIn and so. So we're so happy now that we can promote our future paper here. So if you want to read some research, you now know where to go.
Absolutely.
So that's really good. Thanks a lot, Tim. We will set up the next speakers. And while they get their mics and their computer over here, I will proudly introduce this happy team. I found out yesterday that they were arriving with the plane the late minute, and I was a little bit nervous. but this man always delivers, so I'm very happy that he's here today. So we got Alex Tatic, who is the director of the Tatic Design Studio in Milan. He's also a juror of the Red Dot Award, and he is also a great teaching companion. He's helping out in one of our courses at Lund University, and you're also teaching in some other institutes. And together with him today, he has our former student, Dante Siliakis, who's working on his team. And then he also has with us our current student, now intern in the studio, Anton Schultz. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for the introduction, Charlotte. Yes, as she said, I brought my two colleagues here, senior designer Dante and our junior designer Anton, because it's more fun to do a presentation in 3 people for the first part. And then in this presentation, we would like to give you different angles on how and why we integrated AI into our design process of our agency, and how we created a proprietary app that we're using now on a daily basis. So I will give you my angle as a design manager and director of an agency. Having said that, I'm actually a kind of a gut feeling style design manager. So I'm more a fan of experimenting and seeing what comes out. And with all its benefits and its pitfalls. But actually I am still a designer, and this is also has got some advantages and disadvantages. So I'm talking to you as a design manager, but I've just kind of been forced to be a design manager through my career. But at my heart is the profession and the calling of design. And then these two guys will give you the angle of how this AI app has been developed and how it works in our process. So just 2 words about ourselves. This is our studio, and 2 more senior designers, Tine and Alessandro. And Tine was also part in this questionnaire and research that you guys did and that Trim has presented before. Yeah, we are, Charlotte sometimes introduces me to the students of the industrial design program at Lund University as a hardcore industrial designer. I don't really, I didn't really like that in the beginning, but now I've gotten used to it. So yeah, we are an industrial design studio as it is described in Wikipedia in Milan, Italy, and we design everything that is produced in very large numbers industrially, on industrial scale, so from consumer electronics, kitchen appliances, sporting goods, sporting products, many tools and power tools, boats, motorboats and sailing yachts, access control, mobility products like bikes, and fitness products. And we do that for the market. So we are always on a very tight time frame for our projects, and we're expected to deliver concepts that can be produced feasibly and at the right price and at the right time. So these are some of the services that we offer: product design, design engineering, guidelines, UX, UI, prototyping, everything that you need in order to bring the product to the market. So this is what our industrial design process typically looks like. We start from ideation of the user experience and frustration and benefit over to ideation of what the product could look like and how it could be laid out, to then detailing and 3D building a product, engineering it together with the R&D department of our clients, and then bringing it to the market and sometimes supplying some support for the marketing. While these center three disciplines are our core activity. So 4 years ago, we started, because of this gut feeling management style, I noticed that a new tool was on the horizon, and with also my background as an athlete or sports person, there's nothing worse than falling behind, and this is something that drives me a lot. So as soon as there's a new tool out there, I try to get into it, and I try to understand together with my team how we can use it, or if it is relevant for us. So we started early experimentation of generative AI in 2022, established then a full-time resource working on it in a year later, and we then launched our design app, which we call Touch AI, in March of this year. So this is to take you through this process very briefly. This is how it all started, this experimentation, and it was actually with our colleague there, Victor, who started working with it, where we just said, okay, let's just see what you can do with it. And I passed by his desk going to the kitchen or the bathroom several times a day, and I saw for weeks images like this. And I was like, okay, we're wasting our time. And then I saw cat images with different backgrounds. I said, what are you doing? And he said, yeah, look, the background, I managed to change it with AI. And this is where I thought, okay, we're totally on the wrong path here. But then, 4 years later, we're here. What Trim has described as visualizing our products at a very early development stage, like they were finished and people were using them. So what has happened in between is what we're going to show you in a very quick presentation here. So we started with IP adapters to prompting the different models that are on the market, services to redesign for us, and this is what happened. And then we started giving it some references, and it started to become interesting for us at first glance, but then we saw that the results that we were getting out were not really following the style guides or the design guides of our clients. So LoRa's became available, and we started working with those. So mark LoRa on your bingo card. So that means we started training models.
Fine-tuning, I think, is the word we're looking for.
Sorry?
Fine-tuning we're looking for.
We started training our models first to sketch exactly our style. So this is our sketch, our typical presentation sketch. And that worked just super very well. And then we trained it also to use our design principles on any given product. That worked kind of well, but then when you look into detail, you get a chainsaw with 3 handles or 2 blades and no handles, and we had to spend a lot of time in correcting these, just as Trim has presented before. So we went through various stages and various types of models that we tested, and we have also gotten interesting feedback from our clients through these tests that were very excited about some of the results that we were getting. And some of these tests resulted into a direct implementation of AI models into our process, and others were kind of dead ends. One of the good ones was also CMF, colors, materials, and finishes applications and projections on our products and projects, and also 2D to 3D. So then we ended up with several single patches or modules that we used at different times in our process. But what we actually wanted to do is we wanted to have at the end one tool that would give us the possibility, first of all, for the entire team, which is 12 people big, to use it and to get predictable and standardized results that we can use for our process. And this is a goal that we have set ourselves, and these two guys then started working on it and developing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, since the beginning of our exploration, as Alex mentioned, we have always had a eye looking out on what the industry is doing and what kind of AR services are being offered to not only designers but the general masses. So, can you change the background of your cat picture? Yes. So, yeah, as Alex did, he showed a few of these things that we tried out. We are not going to be able to show all of the stuff that we've done, but up until this point, our conclusion of the current state of these kind of AI services that we call them, and the benchmarks that we made out of them, are the following. So, the models that are available today has, to some extent, limited understanding when it comes to designing products. They are trained on data sets that are geared at certain things, like in the beginning there was a lot of cat pictures. Things are coming up in momentum now when it comes to the design, it's true, but there is still a limited understanding of things that are relevant for a design professional when using a visualization tool or something like this. There's a control challenge. So you come in there with an idea, you have a design intent of what you want to do, what you want to achieve, but you end up going down a different route of trying to fix another problem, trying to get the color of the lion blue, and this kind of control aspect is always kind of out of your reach, it seems like. Next problem is intellectual property. So a lot of the services that are being offered today, they both train their own systems on the data that you input and output, but you also upload your valuable sketches and ideas to their servers, and sometimes the sensitive material that you have, you shouldn't tell anyone about. They're all secrets. We also have a lot of generic content being made. So everything that is output by AI is to some degree, in some level, regurgitated content, right? So you had to put something in for something to come out. So a lot of the visual styles, for instance, that are out there don't have maybe your original touch to them, but it maybe just puts this kind of all-round filter of AI visual on top of it. We all know this kind of look of AI that has been present for some time now. And conclusively, for our perspective, a lot of these AI services are more excitement products than actual tools. So they are built to do wonderful and magic, marvelous things, which really impress you, and you're like, they're opening up doors to this world of possibilities. But you're not really getting down the road you want to be going. You're just kind of getting lost in this big liminal space. So to navigate our way through this minefield of opportunities, we devised a strategy which was to kind of manage our expectations a little bit of what the AI will actually be able to achieve. Maybe we can't just input that little napkin sketch and get the final 3D, but maybe we have to find the areas where the AI actually can work with our process. And there comes in the fine-tuning of our process itself. Maybe we have to arrive at a certain point in the way that we design for us to be able to input a thing that an AI can actually work with in a good way to produce an expected result. We went around and compiled like the best of all the AI applications and models and features that were out there, and started to kind of put them into the areas where they gave the best outcome for us. And then the goal then, what Alex also mentioned, to create this kind of holistic process or tool that we can make available to all of our design staff. So this is a kind of flow chart, which Anton mainly has been working a lot on, which describes in essence how our AI app that we use at the studio works. And I'm not going to go into everything, but it basically satisfies the following needs for us. And those are to adhere to a briefing. So whenever we do a project, there's like the reality of the components that needs to go inside, the ergonomic and regulatory things. We have a specific target group, a specific brand. All those kind of things are the most key important thing when we are designing. We also want to allow for an iterative process. So when we input something and generate an output of AI, and there is something there that we would like to fix, or we would like to take that into a different, you all know what iteration is. It's like going with one idea in one direction and then taking turns and exploring, going back and iterating. We want like a way where this is possible in a fluid designer way in the tool. And also, we want the design intent to be respected and followed by the AI. So we don't want things to just go off in a direction that we didn't expect it to, even though you find these happy accidents sometimes. When you work with a tool, you want it to be predictable. And we want to meet the contemporary industry standards. So basically, as a design studio, we are expected to present at a certain level and with a certain content when we give our, the torch over to our client. So these are like the aspects we set up for ourselves that this flow chart kind of solves for us. So just to go through a few of these features and how we kind of solve them without being too technical, is this the technical restrictions part, firstly, so the adhering to the briefing, where, as I told you, we have things like internal, external components. We have the regulatory aspects of different safety standards in different regions, different tests that are being performed on the tools. You have regulations on this, for instance, package is for a small pruning chainsaw, which is a dangerous tool if you don't have the right, design of it. So all of these things, alongside with ergonomic requirements, are things that we want to be able to control when we start putting in an idea into an AI. So we've devised a kind of masking strategy where we've trained our own control net based on a way that we are already familiar with working. So when we do sketching, we always sketch on top of this kind of technical underlay. And we know ourselves what is what and how to do, but we have devised a strategy with color blocking and all kinds of things that basically allow us to input into our app what to not touch, what to respect, where to actually project our design intent and where not to do so. So kind of the basics of that. Which means, we can go from this kind of quick scribble sketch into something that respects all of the aspects of having a battery where the battery needs to be and having a blade protector over the chain where that needs to be, instead of having something that looks like this. So another aspect, iterative process. So one of the finds that we went through in our early days of AI was that we did something like this that looked amazing, that was finalized in all its glory to the eye of the beholder, but there were a lot of things that were not quite right with it. A lot of things still had to be adjusted and done to, make it feasible. And to go into a visualization like this and then Photoshop it and move things along took a lot of time. So we actually spent a lot of time in post-processing in the early days of AI use. So we had this quick leap forward in visualization, but then we had to salvage that time at the end instead. So we devised this approach where with every output we make in the app, we can choose to work with this kind of clean outline sketch style, which we anyways use for peer reviews inside of the studio and stuff, where it's much easier and quicker to iterate. So we can move lines, we can do adjustments without spending all that time of color and shading and these things, and then feed that back into the AI app flow. And then about the design intent, we've devised a strategy where we are moving with quite small incremental steps to really control. We call them amongst ourselves A to Bs, where we have trained our AIs to go from a certain kind of input to a certain kind of output in a very reliable way. And by chopping it up in these kind of pieces where, for instance, we can input this 2D line drawing of the thing, we can ourselves add color to it where the color needs to go, just to that is again a design intent that we are putting in. And then we come out that this final sketch rendered, that in this case has been trained on this proprietary sketch style of the studio, like 20 years of sketch content that we have, which has been a great advantage for us. So by doing these kind of super reliable steps, we are really, we know where we are coming out, let's say. And we have built in this, as Alex showed already earlier, to these kind of contextual visualizations as well. So now Anton will introduce the latest functioning version of the app, which he's been working on. So please, Anton.
Thank you, Dan. Is my microphone working?
Yep. Cool.
Hello, everybody. So we're going to show you the latest iteration of our design suite, basically. It's called TIE. And this is the interface. So just a brief tour of it. To the left, you have the navigation sidebar with the different tabs. And in the center, you have the input boxes, output box, and this is where we are generating. And to the right, we have the history sidebar with a functioning star system to keep track of generations. And we're going to do an example of designing a pruning chainsaw, like Dante talked about, with the application. So the user starts by uploading something that's within the application called a region. And we don't have time to go into all of the aspects of this, but the most important thing is that we see the blade and the battery in place. These are the external components. And then the user uploads a rough sketch, which serves as the design intent. Can look something like this, right? Enters their prompt, can queue several generations at once, and hit generate. So just to mention, this application is designed to work with existing programs such as Photoshop, Miro, and Sketchbook that industrial designers are used to working with. And so this is the result of a generation. It's a clean line sketch with the external components in place, and it's fully iteratable upon. So now I've skipped forward. We've done a few generations. And as we can see, they're all very different, right? And this is something positive. Sorry. So they download the line sketch that they like, they take it into Photoshop, and they adjust any lines, and they do a color block or apply flat coloring where they feel where they want what colors. So that's an intermediate step. They then take it into the next tab called Airbrush. And it looks something like this, right? So they then hit Generate in this next tab, and the point here is that we are rendering our sketch using a fine-tuned model trained on our proprietary sketch style. So we are not deviating from our brand identity. And it looks like this. So now we have our side view sketch, right? So what we want to do is that we want to change the perspective of it. We want to have it from a different angle. And instead of repeating the process, we just put this sketch into the next tab called New View. The sketch is uploaded, and the user clicks on the next input box, which generates a 3D model. The user then orbits this 3D model to select a viewpoint that they are happy with. So in this case, we want it in perspective, for example. The user clicks Use Viewpoint when they are happy with the angle. And this is then used as a secondary input for the generation process. They click Generate. And out comes a completely coherent to the original sketch, different angle of the same concept. And the reason we output this in a line sketch style is because we want to be able to adjust any lines that might have been wrong. Because changing the angle of something can be very difficult, and it's very important to maintain control. And just a few extras is that we take this into the previous process of rendering it within the application, right? And we can also turn it into photorealistic. And we can also make a turntable video, all within the same application. So this is an example of how you can use open source models to tailor them to a specific design process. Back to Dante.
For a quick summary?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Anton. And so I think some of you here probably have been in and kind of trying out these different AI services that I mentioned earlier. You know, we have the nano bananas out there. We have the amazing multimodal gigawatt stuff that can do some pretty amazing stuff. And just to kind of give some perspective on that, because after seeing what those things have done, then you can think maybe that this is like kind of boring and kind of, you know, basic, rudimentary. So just to share a bit of our perspective on that, I'm going to bring back an old friend of mine. So for those of you who were joining the conference last year, we were talking about this Gartner hype cycle, as it's called. So this is kind of describing whenever a disruptive technology is introduced in society, how it's received by these two axes of visibility in society then and the time elapsed since the technology was introduced. And so, you know, just to kind of use this as a little map of where we are, I would assume we are kind of somewhere around this crazy emoji over there, which means that the technology arrived, AI, and the promises of what AI could do for design were huge. They just peaked up. I mean, you guys know it in your LinkedIn feeds, on your whatevers. It's just about AI all the time. I mean, look at us. We're having AI conference, for Christ's sake. 1 minute. And so we're at the crazy emoji. And the thing is, in this crescendo of the curve, an amazing amount of investments have been made. $200 billion to be exact. In 2025, almost 50% of all startup money was AI. So we are kind of talking to ourselves, how do we get into the flattening of this curve where the actual AI technology meets the expectations and becomes a usable tool as a designer? So we want to get kind of here. And how do we do that? Drum roll, please. Hammer, Hultafors, Swedish steel and timber. No, it's an analogy, of course, in this case. So a hammer is a boring tool. A hammer does exactly what you expect it to do. You just take it in your hand, you hit the nail, and it just does that. It's not something that you hit, and then suddenly you get a vibration and notification, and it asks, what kind of nail do you want? And oh, it's going to rain in 1 hour. Are you sure you don't want to finish up early? And that's kind of what we are at with the AI surfaces today. They're kind of inflated and bloated and over the top. And we need to get kind of in a way where we align the expectations a bit about also where the technology of AI are and where the way we use it. So our approach to the AI app that we have been making is to create the hammer. It's a little bit more boring, but it actually functions as a tool for a designer, not just as a kind of excitement generator. So that was our final perspective on things.
Great. Thank you very much, Team Tatic. And now it's time for coffee. I hope you enjoyed coffee, and maybe some of you also enjoyed some artwork in the exhibition. And we will move directly along in our schedule. And I have the pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ibtisam El Hassani. And she's my fairly recent colleague at the Department of Design Science. And she is a Lise Meitner professor at the Division of Innovation. So I'm very happy to see what you have for us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here. My name is Ibtisam, and I work at the intersection of artificial intelligence and industrial processes. My research focuses on how AI can support product development, industrial processes, quality use, and decision-making in general. I approach generative AI in design from a slightly different angle. When we talk about generative AI in product design, we often start with that AI can generate new images, forms, shapes, and concepts. And this is, of course, useful, but today I would like to start one step later. So I would like to ask, what happens when a promising concept leaves the screen and enters the real world of product development? This is the moment when the journey of the physical product begins. The product starts to meet real constraints. It has to meet engineers, materials, tolerances, suppliers, production processes, quality, costs, sustainability, and real use. And at this point, the question is no longer, is this concept is attractive, beautiful, but it also becomes, can we engineer it? Can we manufacture it reliably? Can we keep the quality consistent? Can we avoid unnecessary waste or energy? Is it sustainable across the life cycle? So, and many problems appear here, not because the first idea was bad, but some consequences are too important to discover too late. In product development, a concept becomes a chain of decisions, and each decision creates consequences later. A design choice becomes an engineer question. An engineering choice becomes an industrialization question. And industrialization choice becomes a manufacturing constraint, and manufacturing conditions affect quality and reliability. And of course, sustainability is also part of the whole chain. So let me illustrate this with a simple example. Imagine a small connected device with a seamless premium casing. The design intent is clear, clean surface, no visible screws, and premium feeling. But this same choice creates consequences later. In engineering, hits might become difficult to manage. In industrialization, the team may need a special bounding process. In manufacturing, assembly may become slow. And in quality, small gaps may be difficult to detect. And in use, battery replacement may become difficult. And sustainability is affected across the whole chain, from materials, energy, waste, and the end of life. And designers need this knowledge early. So, and this is why this anticipated feedback matters, because the best time to discuss these consequences is when the concept is still flexible and not when the product is already too expensive to change. So what kind of feedback do designers need earlier? In engineering and product development in general, we use a logic called design for X. And the idea is simple. When we design a product, we do not only design for appearance or for use experience. We also design for the realities that the product will face later in the process. So, for example, design for manufacturing and assembly, or design for quality, or design for maintainability, or design for sustainability. So for designers, these questions are important because they help improve the concept early. But there is one problem. At the early stage, the final product does not exist yet, and so the product itself cannot answer these questions. So what we can use instead? So at this stage, the designer has, of course, needs and requirements to design or redesign a product. The designer can also benefit from valuable knowledge. This knowledge can come from past projects and similar products. It can also come from standards, patents, material information, market feedback, and known defects. And some knowledge can be anticipated through simulation, digital twins, predictive models. And this knowledge exists in different systems, softwares, files, data, technical data, etc. So if we can connect it and interpret it well, it can help designers and product development teams make better decisions earlier. But there's still one problem. This knowledge exists, as I said, but it's not easy to use. It is distributed across people, departments, documents, softwares, and it is specialized because it's written in expert language, in quality language, or in manufacturing language. And it often comes as reports, logs, models, technical data, and it's hard to connect to the current concept. So the knowledge is there, but it does not automatically become useful to support design or product development. And this is where the role of generative AI and especially agentic AI systems become clearer. Generative AI is not only useful for generating concepts, but it can also help designers find the right knowledge connected to the current concept and turn it into insightful design, okay? And so instead of leaving knowledge on its raw form, AI can help transform it into design intelligence. This design intelligence can support early design, for example, through design of manufacturing or design of sustainability and so on. And this is not limited to early design. It can support the whole product development process. At the top, we have the normal product development process. Below that, we have the human-AI interaction. And behind this interaction, we have an orchestrator. Its role is to coordinate different specialized agents, AI agents. Some agents retrieve relevant knowledge, some generate alternatives, some analyze risks, trade-offs, defects, insights, or signals, and some may help to integrate the result to current situations. So these agents use specific skills, and they connect to the company knowledge through connectors. Then the system brings all this back as design intelligence to the team. So agentic AI can help teams work better and faster while augmenting their decision-making capabilities. Now, let's me ground the idea on 3 applications from our own work and ongoing research. As I said, we work specifically in providing companies with AI solutions that are integrated in their process and using their own data and values on it. So for the first and second application, I changed the data and replaced it with the simulated data for this conference. And the third application used public data. So the examples are simplified, but the logic behind is real. Here we have the first application is AI agent system for design for sustainability support. It can be also for manufacturing support or quality support or all of them at once. Here you can see AI agent supporting the designer before generating concept, and they just show you also after generating concept. So at the beginning, the designer may have a product brief. In this example, we have the product is vacuum cleaner. The AI agent system enriches this brief before the concept is fixed. So for example, one agent can search for relevant standards. Another agent can look for patents or similar products to understand the existing solutions. Another agent can learn from customer reviews or previous products. So before generating concept, the designer already has better knowledge about downstream consequences. And here in this particular application, we are focusing on sustainability, as I said, but we can focus on other aspects of downstream impacts. Then the designer can generate concepts, and after the concepts, the AI agent system can evaluate them according to our criteria. Here is the sustainability criteria. We have here, we compare 3 possible design concepts: a low-cost seal vacuum, a modular repairable vacuum, and a circular service vacuum. The AI agent system compares these options through the lens of design of sustainability. It evaluates them using several dimensions. It also shows the trade-offs, as we will see now. For example, a sealed body may make the product smoother, cheaper to assemble, and easier to protect from dust, but it can also make battery replacements much more difficult, so AI agent can show us these trade-offs and help us to manage it. And the system also shows uncertainty, because at the early design, even if we have knowledge, but some information is still incomplete, and we want to know the uncertainty of this information. So the agentic AI system helps the designer see the consequences earlier in terms of sustainability in this case, compare the option more clearly, and make a better human decision. So they support the designer before generating concepts and after generating concepts. The second application is AI-supported field intelligence. In this case, the application supports customer or store staff during product assembly. And the application helps staff assemble the product step by step, like assistant to assemble. They can also ask Gen AI for specific information, and they can report an issue when they find a problem in a specific step or part, as you can see here. But what is interesting for us in design and product development is what happens if we capture these interactions in a structured way. If many users repeatedly ask about the same step, the same screw type of the same unstable parts, this is not only a support decision, this becomes a field feedback. And so the application can become a sensor to the next design cycle. It can show which steps are confusing, which parts create frictions, and where the product could be easier to assemble, repair, deassemble, or use. So in this way, AI does not only help the customer to assemble the products, but also it helps the product development team learn from the assembly problems and bring them to the design to improve the next version of the products. The last example is AI-supported FMEA. Here, the idea was to start from a very simple observation. Many signals about products problems already exist, but they are hidden in instructed feedback. So here we worked with large amounts of customer reviews, hundreds of thousands, and used AI to identify negative feedbacks, extract product parts, problem, failure mode, and then organize the information, this feedback, to FMEA type outputs for the engineers. So the value here is not to replace the FMEA experts, but the value is that AI can help transform this scattered data and large amounts of data into early risk intelligence that can support designers to see the problems that we may have in the product and take what we have to do to have a better products and better decision making. And here the same idea applied on videos reviews. So the main takeaway is this: AI can not only generate concepts and images and beautiful concepts, it can also support better informed design. So not just to work for us, but as a partner, helping you doing your work, your design better. It can help us turn this raw knowledge into design intelligence and use it to generate better informed concepts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think everyone who works in design understands that when you scale up and you produce a lot of products, the impact will be huge. So it's really important that we do a good job in prediction and making sure that we don't put products on the market that will do more damage than necessary.
Sure.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and now I will connect my computer for our next speaker. Martina's here today, and I think it's really great because our former speakers have discussed a couple of things. One was the importance of communities of learning. And I think we will touch upon that with the project that we're working on currently. So I'll just hand over to you and you can tell all about it.
Thank you, Charlotte. And hi, everyone. So nice to see so many of you here today. I just want to share some reflections, because I had the privilege to be here last year as well, Charlotte, when you arranged the other conference. And I went home on the train feeling so inspired, energetic, and eager to learn more. And I thought, I would really host an event like that together with Charlotte. And now we're doing that 1 year later. So thank you, Charlotte. So, Project Recreate. It is a project that we started 1 year ago, and I will soon dive more into exactly what we are doing. But first, a presentation about AI Sweden. That is a National Center for Applied AI. Do I have my colleagues here now? Astrid and Kalle and Gunnar, could you please just stand up so people can see you? If you have any questions about AI Sweden and what we do, please connect with me or my super brilliant colleagues afterwards. AI Sweden work with all parts of society, I would say. We touch upon the ecosystem out of a public sector perspective, startup and SMEs, academia and research institutes, NGOs, unions, and trade associations. We also work with industry and large enterprises. And this is what we called our logo wall that can give you a short picture about the amount of partners that we are working with. We are financed by them, by national innovation structures and projects, of course. Yes. So reach out if you want to know more about what we do and how we can help you, and projects that we are running, except more than Recreated, I will talk about today. Just a short background to the project. We initiated and produced a pre-study that is called Democreate for 4 years ago now. It was an historic milestone in the Swedish innovation system history, I would say, as it was the first time that the creative sector was elected as one of the national priorities. It is like the Swedish governmental flagship for large-scale societal transition. And what we did was that we made a 1-year pre-study. We were focusing on the creative sector, also out of a democratic perspective, resilience, and how it connects today. We landed a lot of analyses. One of them was that the creative sector are going to be very exposed for this new technology. We also landed an insight that the sector is lagging very much behind when it comes to knowledge and new technology. We didn't get the big call for 10 years and 2 billion in the budget, but what we got was a partnership of around 80 partners, both nationally and internationally. And what we, in the end, landed in was to downscale it and just focus on the technical development that is affecting the industry, and also strengthening the knowledge about what it means for you as a practitioner within the creative sector. So the Recreate project started with 1st of May, exactly 1 year ago. It is funded by Västra Götalandsregionen, Tillväxtverket, and throughout the partnership. And I'm happy to see some of our partners here today. Chalmers is here, represented by Oskar Rexfeldt, I know, and also HDK Valand, the University of Gothenburg, Matthias, I think, is here somewhere. And it is a system innovation project because we think it's really important to break the silos, both when it comes to the organizational structures, but also when it comes to the knowledge. We are focusing on 4 areas within the creative sector, and they are architecture, film, fashion, and design. And they might seem like a spreadsheet when you look at it at first, but they all follow this kind of traditional design structure, of course. Many of them work with some kinds of materials that they need to calculate and make different decisions on. They also work with visualization. And lastly, they work with, a lot of them work with 3D and such as. So these are the areas that we are working with. And these are the project structure, you could say. It's like the traditional coordination and communication, project management. And we also focus on information and learning. And lastly, and the lion part of what we do is that we investigate through a lab and conceptual prototype development through the participants in our activities. Speaking about activities, this is what we can offer within this project. We produce webinars, and you find all of these material in on our website. You can go to AI Sweden Recreate, you can just search it. And the common ground for all these activities is that we're working out of a practical focus. We arrange industry seminars like this. We arrange workshops at our office in Gothenburg. We distribute newsletters, and as it is a system innovation project, we always try to connect recent research with the webinars or any other activities that we do. We have student collaborations that we were talking about, and I will come back to that a little bit later. We have a creative tech forum, which is a forum where the people in the forefront exchange ideas, solutions, and inspire each other, basically. And lastly, we do local meetups in Gothenburg together with our partnership. You can find all information and everything that we have produced until now on our website, as I said. And all activities is free of charge, doesn't cost anything. And you are most welcome to participate if you want to. And so we've been running the project for 1 year, and we are kind of overwhelmed by the interest and the results of amount of participants that we have reached so far. Before we started, we were aiming at reaching out to around 200 registered participants. By the end of April now this year, we are up around 1,000. There are a lot of activities around our webinars on YouTube, and regarding the conceptual prototypes, that is our line part of the focus that we are doing, we have reached until now 321. And just to give a short picture about what they are, if we're talking about the TRL scale, for example, the majority is somewhere between 0 and 3, maybe. The student collaboration works is between 5 or 6, and then we also have a handful of works that is presented throughout the project as demonstrators, which aims to reach, I would say, around 6, 7, maybe 8. So now our big work is to how to move these lower TRL scales up to a higher level. We also have, as I said, student sector collaboration projects, which is super interesting. Some soft results and responses, as you were mentioning, Trim. We have, through this project, produced and created a platform where people are meeting. It is a community of learning. It is a platform where different kinds of the creative sector, coming back to our mission as AI Sweden to accelerate the use of AI, really fills in the blanks of each other. We see, I saw that you were here, Monica, I can't see you now. Monica, representing fashion industry, also one of our collaborative partners, just gave me a super nice picture the other day when she said, when you had the conversation with Henrik, which is a filmmaker, you were sitting down discussing how fabric moves or something like that in the picture, and you said, well, we're filling our blanks. I talked to Henrik, and he says, I don't know how to do this. Yeah, but you need to do this. And then he comes and then also the other way around. So that is also something that we really have experienced within this project, that doesn't really matter what kind of, what part of the sector you are representing. You can exchange ideas, experiences, and solutions in the community. We also, I'm quite sure that it's the first time that someone has brought this broad representation of the creative sector together in one forum. And I'm very happy that we also, throughout the work, also have collected a lot of data. So we are also looking at writing some kind of paper of this. It is super exciting. The thing that are key in the work, and what we have realized now, is that the technique itself is not always it's not there where the magic happens. The magic happens when you bring in your domain knowledge from the part of the sector that you're coming together with methods, and then you achieve sustainable and exciting solutions, I would say. Yes. And what we also find As I think is most of the thing is that the sector gains agency when it owns and shapes its own digital processes based on identified needs. When we start to talk with actors within the creative sector today, we never talk about the technique in the first place. We always talk about identified needs. And then we go into what kind of a technique could help you to solve this. I think that was it.
Super.
Team, we're great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will make sure to that you have an opportunity to sign up. I think that there is a QR code somewhere over there. Look there. So you can join for the newsletter or go in and see. And follow on LinkedIn. There is an own LinkedIn page, and it's called
AI for Creative Sector.
AI for Creative Sector.
Yes.
So there you can follow the activities of this project.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will start the panel discussion. I would be super happy if you want to answer that Mentimeter, for those of you who feel technically savvy, or you can just come and tell me how you found out about this event. We're interested to know. And so we have the opportunity to ask questions now, and we have so many speakers here. And I know from last time I was thinking, oh, you know, I need to get the conversation going. But I would actually like to start with you guys, because if you have enough questions, then I don't need to entertain so much. So does anyone want to start? Yes, Ebba?
Thank you. I really enjoyed all the presentations. And I have a question that is maybe mostly for the designers on the stage. And I was wondering, when I heard the Thule presentation, you were talking about Nano Banana, how much you love it, and use it for color and ideation. But then you drew a line in the design process, and you said, I don't want AI to touch this part of my work. And I'm just wondering, what motivates you to draw the line there? Like, why is that? And I also wonder, Tatik Design Studio and the other designers, do you also have a line like this? Is there anything you wouldn't let AI touch?
All right. Yeah, so that was part of mapping out the usage of AI. And it comes back to agency sort of as ownership of the process and intention. So why I'm so excited for A to B things, it's speed. Like, it makes you faster in your work, and your intention is still 100% owned by you. And then adopting AI for sort of a creative work here, it is not a long-term sustainable approach. It will work in some occasions, but relying on it will build a dependency habit which will negatively impact the designer, rather than being a good designer that is capable of working with the form language on different product categories. And training AI for this purpose will also lag behind in development. So project starts here, designers go. But if the AI models are not good for that category, and the development is behind. And as I said, novelty will run out. Once you have flipped through every page of the AI book, you will exhaust it. And when just prompting an image, there is no creation going on. Every single image that you get by a prompt has already been made within that latent space. You are just extracting a page from the model's weights through a prompt. So you're saying kind of with a text prompt, selecting a page in a book and then looking at that image. So yeah, the creation happened at the training of the model by the developers. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that because when you say that it's coming like when you enter a prompt and you get a page, it sounds like the model has a lot of different images and it feeds you one of its library, which of course isn't the case. since it's a very complex equation, right? So, and especially if you have different control nets, which is kind of like an image prompt, so not with words, then it becomes a very complex equation, and I understand the fear that you might want, like, be afraid that it might run out of new ideas, but it's very, very deep in a sense, in my view. Like, running out of that is kind of implausible at this stage, in my view.
We have tried to use AI, like I showed in the beginning of my presentation, as a design tool, also during the concept generation phase, by teaching it what vocabulary it can use to create designs within the boundaries of a language. Yeah? So if we're designing a product for a power tool for Bosch, then we have a design language that we have defined and created and documented. And so, like a intern or junior designer, we trained a model, what does a Bosch design look like? Yeah, and how do you, what kind of words do you use in this language? But the results, they still didn't meet our standards. So it's not that we draw a line because we say, this is something that I want to keep for myself. I can just talk for us as a studio with our philosophy. So it's not that we're drawing a line out of ethical reasons or any other reasons, but we're using it where it makes sense. So the standard and the design quality and design depth that we are getting out as of today is substandard, is not, and I liked when you said, you talked today about taste and results that are good enough. So we can get good enough results, but these are not good enough for us. So that's why and to make them good enough for us, for our standards, we would have to edit these designs and spend more time editing them. This is also what Stefan is saying. So that then it becomes, again, unsustainable in terms of timing, because we'd spend more of our time editing than really creating. Yeah. So that's our answer to no, we're not drawing a line. We're using it where it makes sense, and maybe in the future things will evolve. I'm sure they will, and then this line will shift again. Yeah, we will see.
That's great. And I have a question to Maria. When we did the research, we found that a lot of the big corporations, they were really hesitant to use the systems, and it seems like the smaller companies are, more keen to try things out. How are you dealing with that at Philips Design? Well, I mean, do you run your own large language models? How can you control the company's assets in this whole era?
On one hand, I think we are kind of privileged because there is a great excitement about AI, and we have like operational teams that helps us to use, whether you want like Anthropic, Claude, ChatGPT, just name it. So there's a lot of possibility, simply because it really creates a lot of value. And we are in still this period where we are learning and extracting lots from it. So yes, there is excitement, but then I'm still part of healthcare where validation is really important and checking everything. So you have to have like, the both extremes. You want to go fast. So for example, now we have the possibilities with creating scenes on the fly based on our design patterns, based on our branding language. You can go in the hospital, have these great discussions with the doctors, create videos, and then even make your first prototypes while you're in the hospital, and you can get feedback. That was not possible before that. You know, you have like lots of discussion, you go back, you prototype, and then you go back again to the hospital. That really, you know, accelerates the whole process of understanding this is useful, yes or not, in the hospital. But the rest of it, validation and everything, yes, that's quite some serious work.
Yeah, and Ibtisam, I know in the Recreate project we've had some of the people who are engaged in the project have presented like prediction models for filmmaking, for example, to be able to look at budgets and predict scenarios that could happen and so on. And it's very similar to this discussion we've had in the tech forum, that we could see the potential of such tools being used in downstream for product development, where there is a lot of people involved with different types of knowledge. So how far along is this development? I mean, is this being used now already, or is this like...
Yes, no, not fully. We are not at the production yet, but this a very important question, Nancy, because this field of agentic AI is still new, and people are creating agents for other fields, and also for software development. There is agents, and they are creating this kind of thing to support the software development, not the hardware, but the software. So we are thinking how of this for this particular application. We are already have prototype and evaluating some in companies some of these systems. When we have this feedback from the downstream and get it back to the design or product development in general, to redesign the next cycle of the product, taking in consideration all these downstream impacts. So there are some punctual application, not the whole thing. We are working on that, but and some prototyping of things, because there is also some challenges. Data are everywhere, but they are in their softwares, which how we can connect to it with the AI. They must have their own API to let us connect with this software. We may create some other connectors for data of the company itself. So this is a new thing that's happening now about the agentic AI, and there is a lot of challenges, but we can have some punctual application that brings feedback from the downstream to the company, but not of the whole product development, which is we are working on.
Yeah, and this is, when you work for an organization like AI Sweden, it might seem like, oh, like we're promoting AI, and people could say, you know, is this sustainable practice and so on. But we've seen through the project that there are some ways you could use AI that, you know, you might use energy while you're using it, but you might save a lot of energies in other steps. So I think that that's where we really want to get to, that we're really looking at what are the general benefits of across the board. So do we have any more questions? Yes? And if you want to share who you are, that's great.
My name is Paul and I'm a writer. Sorry, they let me sneak in through the back door. I'd like to ask a question about a different sort of sustainability. And this is addressed to all of you, I suppose. All of you in different ways have emphasized the importance of taste, discernment, expertise. And the question I'd like you to answer is, first of all, how did you acquire your taste, discernment, expertise? And in 15 years' time, when these tools are normalized, where will the taste, discernment, and expertise of your junior employees come from?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a cool one. So I think from our perspective where we are right now, I mean, I can answer your first question briefly. I learned it through just doing design, living and breathing it. kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't, what is good and what isn't. And I mean, in the end, when you're talking about taste, that's also coming down to a personal palate and preference, right? But I did it by being exposed to the craft and working with the tools and, you know, creating the creative idea and manifesting it. Which, yeah, of course, is shown in a different kind of light in these times. But the way that I guess we are curating and cultivating that for our own tools and the way we manage things in the studio is exactly by this fine-tuning and training of our models and the way that we try to narrow down the process and we try to streamline things of not keeping things too open-ended and doing this kind of close-ended A to B approach, because that means, you know, we can do, you know, our taste thing is already set into our design intent. It's not about filtering after the fact, but it happens already here with the intent that we set out. And that's again why we are talking about this, you know, hammer analogy, that we want predictability in our strokes. We don't want a pen when we sketch that thus, you know, just interprets our gesture and thus kind of this instead, and we're like, oh, okay, that was kind of cool, not what I wanted. But we want the pen to do exactly what we want it to do. So that's where I think how we approach aligning taste with what is generated, let's say.
Could you hand over the mic to Trim? Because I think a good point also comes out in like, what is it that you need to know, like to be a designer, and what are the skills and knowledge that you need to have, and also to be a good AI user? And maybe you could share, because Trim was in the session that we had in the morning, and there was some discussions about what are the crucial things that we need to keep for the future, and how we're going to tackle this whole innovation.
So I think it's a wonderful question, and I think just to start off from the beginning, from my perspective, I've also gained through kind of sketching and making and so on, and I think also importantly through critique from other designers. So getting kind of feedback through discussions, also understanding what is other people's tastes in a way, because I think taste is not only something personal, it's also something that we share together as kind of groups and cultures and so on. So I think understanding the culture or the people that you are speaking to is just as important as building your own kind of taste ego in a sense or whatever. And then secondly, I think in the future with these tools, I think the engaging, so we talk about kind of cognitive offloading, you know, like removing the thinking from the process and so on. And I think engaging in various ways with the material, so that could be AI, it could also be through sketching, or also training your eye to see, basically. So it's training taste for me is like to see several solutions and then deciding which is the right one, and to do that repeatedly. If that is in a process where AI exists or where it doesn't exist, I think it's not as relevant in a sense, because I think that's more about communication between people. Yeah, and I think that's my answer to this. Yeah.
Do we have someone else who wants to answer that?
I was thinking, I mean, we all said we acquired our taste through seeing multiple products in action, getting the reflection back and forth. And on one hand, we all worry about AI, and I also worry. But then I was thinking about, I like Marx Brothers from the last century. And Groucho Marx stated, like, I don't want to be part of a club that wants me as a member. So I always try to, despite everything, contradict things. In a sense, I am an amateur photographer, and I was taking some courses last year about street photography. And I was really fascinated, and usually we have to take our work to the class, and then you get all kind of critics. Then I thought, like, large language models can also do the critics as well. So I really like Vivian Mayer. She's like a great New York street photographer. I said, like, imagine if you're Vivian Mayer, just give me, every detailed critique of how I'm doing. Actually, I learned incredibly a lot. So yes, I also learned from my teacher. So you also learn from the AI as well. So and it's not stopping, it's changing. We said we want it to be a tool, but it's actually a material who's evolving and has really emerging properties. Yes, we want to keep taste. We also don't want to lose some of the parts that we do reflection because it's too easy. But then at the same time, there's also great possibilities, I would say.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have more questions, or do you want to? You want
just
also
add
want to?
to that because it is a topic that's
Hot.
No, it's hot, yes, and it's also something I'm personally very interested in. So I think that even us designers couldn't really, or many of us designers can't really pinpoint where taste comes from, but I do believe that there are some very specific skills that and some principles of design that we designers are using that designers also forget that they're using while they're using it, or they're using them subconsciously. And those are about proportions, about coherence in form and shape, and this is these skills designers acquire through in their career from different sources. Junior designers at our studio, they go through quite a rigid training where they're trained to develop these skills. And proportions and coherence, just as two examples, design coherence can also be defined, what works well and what doesn't work well. What works well in a way, what does it mean if something works well? For an industrial designer who is making products that are being sold is that the products are accepted by the consumer and that they're preferred over other designs of the same function. Yeah, and it's one of the aspects is if you're using certain proportions, and if you're able to prioritize proportions and shapes and create a coherence in design, that you're most likely creating a design that is better accepted than if there is no priority in proportions or in volumes on the product. Yeah. So now this is very detailed, but these are aspects that we very consciously use and discuss in the team. I think that they kind of add up to what non-designers would say, well, that's a tastefully designed product because it's harmonious, and the harmony is achieved by playing with proportions and coherence. So if you learn and you train using these aspects by applying them yourself and getting routine in the application of these aspects of form giving. And if you, and this is what the question is hinting at, if you grow up as a designer, not by application of these aspects, but only by curation, how do you then actually get this instinctive use of taste? And this is a good question. And first of all, I think that I wouldn't rule out that AI as well will acquire, will learn how to use, how to prioritize, and how to work with proportions in a coherent way, down to definition of surfaces and edges and design detailing, so that it actually, in a few years down the line, AI will be able also to even decide, is something tastefully designed well or not. And this is something that we have to see. But it's the question that we as also educators are asking ourselves today is, how much longer will we be able to teach working with these very basic skills or acquiring these very basic skills of the young designers if they don't use them anymore by applying them directly. Yeah? Because the results that we're getting today, and I think I said this before, are in many cases already good enough. Yeah? And I think the results that the AI can achieve in design are in many cases good enough also for the consumer, because the consumer is a litmus test, right? The consumer is facing a design, and will he buy it or not? Yeah, and I'm using my dad very often, who's an architect that I admire, and I learned 90% of what I am as a designer from him, and I go and see him and he goes, look, I bought this at Temu. And I said, yeah, but it's crap, And he's like, yeah, but look, it was €3. And it does this and does that. And I say, yeah, but, it's an insult to me that you, and, but he doesn't do this to provoke me, but for him, the product is good enough. Yeah, and I think that we're entering, and then I'm closing, we're entering in this era of good enough. And we will have to endure through this era of good enough for a while until society and the consumers will recognize that good enough is just good enough and that actually we can do better. And there will be a demand again for well-designed products, not just for good enough designed product. This is my hope, because I'm an optimistic guy. But
yes, we have a tour, but so several people. Olof, did you want to ask a question? Yeah. And make sure to keep the mic close to your chin, and especially you also, yes. Because of.
I just want you to reflect on the sort of pursuit of AI. I think about the fashion industry, where companies like Temu are developing products that does not exist. And then when the demand is high enough, they start producing it. Can you see that happening also with other kinds of products? And would you then be totally obsolete as designers? Well, I include myself in that. Do you see that coming down the road?
Yeah, Ibtisam was also nodding.
We totally are already confronted with that, where our clients prompt AI for a new product, and they get a visualization like we've seen from almost everybody here today, and like you also said, they test that. So we're not even involved. So they get a visualization for a product idea that they had, and they describe it, and a design comes out that's good enough for them. They test it, and then they come to us, and then they say, can you just kind of make 3D files so we can go into production? Yeah. And then we say, yeah, but this is not producible. How much should it cost? And they're like, yeah, 160 euros. And it's like, yeah, but how would you do this light that's going all around this housing, you know, with this LEDs, and how would you pay? Yeah, it doesn't somehow, yeah. So this is happening, and they are, and this would also be resolved, this technical issue. Again, I'm coming back to my thing. It's going to be good enough, then we have to see how the next generation will respond to these products. Yeah.
Right, we have a question over here.
Andreas Friedrich, design manager at AFRY, mainly within automotive. I have a reflection, and it is about, within automotive, we often talk about the first read, the second read, the third read. And I think that is something that AI really can't do. This is something we still need humans for. And we are even talking about the fourth read now, which is about sound and scent and light in interiors. And I mean, that is something where we humans really are still needed. And that leads me to, 2 weeks ago, I was at a conference in Köln, and I listened to Andreas Vlasak, who is the head of interior design at Forvia, one of the biggest interior suppliers for automotive. And he said that we still have a planet to consider, and we still have humans to fit into the vehicles. So we designers, we are professional empathists. And I thought that resonated so well with what we are doing. And their AI is still just a tool to me. Do you agree about that?
Yes, who wants to answer that? Maria, you were nodding.
No, I mean, I guess the microphone is on. Yeah, I said it. We only care. You cannot feel the burden. You cannot feel the, the responsibility. The AI can on a cognitive level maybe try to pretend that it's helping you, but it's not the same. Simple as that.
Great. We have a question here.
Yes. My name is Gunnar Ehn. I'm a retired Electrolux director. I would like to ask, you are on the point that AI itself can conceivably learn everything you know with time. Now, juxtapose that with the development of AI models. Today we are in a generative AI generation. Next generation will be a transformative AI generation with agents. I'm a student of Marshall McLuhan. I think Marshall McLuhan, if he was alive today, he could tell you what the next step is in AI development. And at the same time, we are seeing the development of edge computing. Right now, the American frontier models are ruling the whole sector. And Europe is way behind. And I understand you all are using American models as a base, that's the bedrock of your compute skills. Now, Europe, what is the opportunities for Europe to compete with the United States and China? As I see it, there's one glimmer of hope at the horizon. It's not the training of frontier models and building ever greater data center halls built on Jensen Huang's NVIDIA TPUs. Like Elon Musk is building Colossus, now Altman is going to trump that, and there's a race to roll out of ever bigger data centers. But at the same time, a small Canadian company called Thales has put a computer on an LLM on a chip. That seems to be the start of a race of edge computing, where ever bigger, with the capacity which is now explosive, you can see it increasing from week to week. I've studied this for 2 years, 16/7. and I've never seen anything like it. I think we're on a Cambrian explosion 2.0, a cognitive Cambrian explosion. There's no question about it. Last time it happened was 540 million years ago. So we should really be proud to be alive today. So I'm going to spend the rest of my living days studying this because it's so bloody exciting. I've never been working harder than now.
Gunnar, we need to invite you to the tech forum. I can hear it.
The question is, Thalas, LLM on a chip, in 2 years, might become as powerful as the most powerful American frontier models are today. Juxtapose that with your good enough. That seems to be a chance for Europe because we don't need those super powerful American models any longer to do good enough stuff in Europe. So why don't we put our own LLM models on a chip and build everything on edge compute, building a sovereign European AI ecosystem? We don't need to be dependent on the American founder models. What do you think about that?
Yeah, hear, hear. What do you say, Tim? You have the mic in your hand.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderfully big question, so I think it's hard to give a very good answer to it, to be honest. But I think I will try to pick a little bit from each of these questions in a way, because I think, first of all, designing products that does not become real, I think is quite an important task in a way. I love kind of Piranesi, Lebbeus Woods, these architects that are envisioning the future in a sense. And I think this is a really important task that we have as designers to envision the future. And I think as Europeans, we also have our kind of local cultural history, we have our kind of background, and I think we should kind of try to leverage our kind of local knowledge as much as possible to also avoid the homogenization and the consequence of having kind of one centralized model. So one issue, for example, with image generation and so on, is that they all end up looking very much the same. It's like if we try to generate a stave church, for example, in the image generation model, it comes out looking like a fantasy from a video game, some kind of so it's a kind of distortion of our reality somehow. So in a way, I think we need to use our cultural knowledge and local knowledge in that sense.
Yeah, I haven't commented on that. It's a very, very insightful thought, and yeah, I'm totally agree that we are in the improvement of AI is daily based. It's something that's improving very fast, as you may say. And if someone say that AI can't do that for now, sure they are not seeing the right tools or the right improvement that they are happening now, or it's a matter of time. In a few weeks, it may be capable to do it. It's something very huge that's happening, and we should be aware of that. And yes, totally agree that we have these two poles, Americans and Chinese, with very low-cost models that we can use, and we use actually, and you are right, Europe and other countries have to build this governance about the infrastructure, about the models themselves, and about the data that they have, and this is something that should be discussed for the Europe level. And I think, from my point of view, there is something which I appreciate in the Nordic culture that may be something that you can bring to this improvement, which is the caring about sustainability and caring about responsibility and caring about a lot of values that perhaps Americans don't. So this is, for me, it's an opportunity to build things from the values of European, and speaking specifically about the Nordic. And this is something that we can do, but it's really, really something that should be done now, and because things are moving very fast. And yes, this space is, we have these spaces to discuss this interaction between AI and this kind of application on design and development products. So, yeah.
Yeah, Martina.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so I totally agree with you. And we are actually building out now a new Nordic AI center, started last year. Not only AI Sweden, it is with all the Nordic countries, of course. You can go into New Nordics and have a look at that. And that is also the start of something super interesting that we will keep on growing the nearest years.
Yeah, that's great. And I think this is the scary thing is that we are the ones that are deciding in the end. You know, you work with this and you have now the people here that are developing and driving this, and I think it's such a responsibility to be aware of things and to communicate with the right people and to raise awareness for things. So anything that could be done to put people together and think a bit better about this, I think it's really worthwhile. So that's good to hear. And I will hand over to...
Can I just add one angle to this previous question?
Sorry.
I think we have to look at it on a much broader context. We're moving in the last decades for us as designers. They were characterized by creating global products. Yeah, we went from local products, from being specialized to design for certain markets, Southern European market, Northern European market, US market, to creating global products that can be sold anywhere. And the reason is that companies, our client corporations, were getting bigger and bigger and gaining access to global markets. They were selling products in the US, in Europe, in Middle East and Asia. And so they wanted to keep investments low. So they wanted to have good enough products for the entire world with just one investment, one tool or one family of tools that they can sell everywhere. And this has been going on, and we're getting faster and faster at doing this, and AI is, as we heard today, contributing to increasing the speed and the cost and decreasing the cost of the development. But we're losing our local identity, and we have been losing, have lost also know-how about products. Just one example is, just to illustrate, is the design of gloves. So we designed several functional gloves, protective gloves, ski gloves, climbing, power tool gloves. And in Europe, there's 2 people that are close to retirement that are left that have glove construction know-how. And you think, how difficult is it to make a glove? But if a glove with the thumb, our thumb is a really complex member. It has 360, it's not 360, but spherical possibility of movement. And if we look at some gloves from the 80s, leather gloves for horseback riding, they have a thumb construction that makes the glove so much more comfortable, and this type of glove doesn't exist anymore because this know-how has been lost, because gloves are being made in the Far East or now North Africa because that's cheaper. So, and then people went into retirement. Young people, like what you have asked before, haven't learned this craft and this know-how. So that has been lost, and everybody globally is happy with a good enough glove because they don't know what a great glove can be. Yeah, sorry about taking this stupid example. It's so simple. But it is my belief that technology enabler like additive manufacturing will bring manufacturing back to local markets, where we will then be able to reacquire our local know-how and infuse our local culture into products that are going to be produced locally. So this advantage of just investing into one tool for the entire world is not going to be relevant anymore, but local, it's going to be actually more interesting to offer locally designed or relevant products. And this is, I think, where also the need for a local AI version that is trained with this knowledge that we will have to somehow redevelop or reacquire. This is, I don't know about that, how that will work, but I'm sure that this will happen. And then the question is, is it 10 years? It all depends on really this technology enabler, additive manufacturing, how fast will they be able to ramp up their speed? Apple is already using additive manufacturing for the Apple Watch. So I think we're actually getting closer to something like that, which is also a hope and an optimistic view on that. Yeah.
Great. Let's squeeze in another question from Kingfo. We pass down the mic.
Hi, so I'm Kingfer and I'm a designer at Huawei. And I just have a question about value, because I think all of you have touched upon value in some point or in some area. And my question is, how do we define, or how can we differentiate value of an outcome of a product or a process or a design? Because it can be, I mean, for me at least, I have spent years and decades to gain experience and skills, both from Charlotte teaching me how to draw a line, shadows, colors, and perspective. And then after a time when AI is introduced, we forget that. And I think you mentioned and touched upon that. And imagining designing power tools like you guys do, and how do you define the value of using AI to 90% of the process compared to a traditional agency focusing on traditional industrial design or generic design as a whole? Because for me, as a designer, we always have this hot topic of where is our value as a designer in this time of age?
And you can pass over the mic here, but I like to also answer to that we've been discussing in the research and as kind of what will come out of this situation. And I think that through the study that we did with the people, already industrial design is kind of hurting in a lot of fields with the identity and product design being used by other sectors that never designed a physical product ever. So to kind of sell this, we've seen companies being bought up by big consultancies and then folding them when they realize that it's not enough value. So there's been a lot of discussions around this, and hopefully we can produce a paper on this. But I think that in the future it might be that a lot of business plans have to be revised. And it's always a question about who will profit from this, who will make profits out of the introduction of AI, and what will it mean for the companies. So I hesitate to give the mic back to you, Alex, but I think I'll do it anyways.
Yeah, it's Maria had it. I want this presentation because there are many good points in it. And you said design is getting, I think you had it like for free or something, and that's true. That's exactly true, because what's the value of design today? I did my internship during university at Busse Design Ulm. Rido Busse is a graduate of the Ulm School in Germany in the 60s, and he wrote a book about the value of design. And at that time, until the 80s and early 90s, design fees were calculated on design fees and then utility fee or licensing fees, both in one package. So you would get paid for the hours, or design agencies would get paid for the hours that they worked on a design, and then they would also get paid on a fixed yearly license, which was calculated before the product went into production. So it's not a royalty, but it's a design licensing fee if the company used the design for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And this was very logical and very pragmatic, because he said, okay, we developed this product together, and I go through this process with you, with all the changes and all the terrible stuff that you make me do, and until the product goes into production. And then the product is in production for 10 years. I should have also participate in the success of the product in production. And this because I created value for you as a company. And unfortunately, designers are so terribly stupid that they compete also through price. Yeah, and I see that I get invited into so many free pitches. Yeah, come, we're a big company, XYZ, and we'd like you to give you a chance to design for us, and this is the project. Last one was bike motors, a range of bike motors, which is a huge project, and you present 5 concepts in 6 weeks, and then if we select you, you have the chance to work for us. And it's a free pitch, and you don't know how many agencies actually agreed to agree to work like that. And it's even worse in the communication design, advertising design.
And architecture.
Right. And this is how the industry got rid of this design licensing fees scheme. Designers just agreed to not adhere to that, yeah, starting in the 90s. And now, no one, I mean, if I'd come to my clients and they would just laugh. So what is the value now? The value now is our hourly rate and the number of hours that we're using, that we need to do a project. Yeah, so I don't know, on a power tool, 400 hours, right? And now with AI, we're faster in the concept phase, because we spend time thinking, and then we spend triple the time that we spent thinking, illustrating our thoughts to people who then will half understand them. So this 70% of the ideation phase, which is spent by illustrating and documenting your ideas, this has been reduced to a fraction like we've seen today, and we are reducing that as well, and we are still keeping quiet about that and trying to keep our hourly rates and our value on the same level. But you can count the days until the first designers will say, well, yeah, we actually require less time because we have AI, so we can offer this project for half the price. Yeah? And some agencies have already started doing that. So yeah, the value is going down, and that's the big question. You know, what are we going to do then? We need to have more clients and more projects, or will we reduce our teams? And it's, you know, we have to be very emotional about this. It's a business decision, but it's the same decision that designer agencies and designers had to take when computer-aided design came into our world. Before that, when I was doing my internship at Busse Design, there are 9 designers and there are like 24 draftsmen. They were only doing 2D drawings, sections of a chainsaw, you know, every 20 millimeters a section. And so a project for a new chainsaw was like 3 years. And it was 1 designer and 3 2D draftsmen that started to work in 2D CAD, but when I was there, they were still working on vellum paper, and no changes possible. And so this changed, and now you need just 2 people, you know, a CAD specialist and a designer. So the teams got reduced, and the design agencies do many more projects with the amount of people that they have. And yeah, again, last thing, just to illustrate that, I was in an exhibition of Aldo Rossi, and he was one of my big idols when I started industrial design. He was an architect and industrial designer, and he did fantastic stuff for Alessi, and in Milan there was this exhibition about him, and there was a big poster, and it started with Aldo Rossi in his career has designed over 150 products. We, for Gardena, in 15 years, we have designed 350 products. Yeah? So that's the scale of things. Projects at that time took much longer, many more resources, and many more people could live off fewer projects. And this has changed with the advent of computer-aided design, and we will be going through the same change with AI.
Yeah. I will hand the last question over to my student. So use it wisely, will you?
A lot of pressure. Yeah, I'm a student at the Lund School of Design, and I wanted to ask maybe more of a philosophical question almost. I think it's interesting that the question of why AI is being implemented in design. Tim, you talked about the driving factor being a fear of being outcompeted, of not being able to sell your labor as cheaply as possible, as you also mentioned here, Tatic, that, and also this fear of falling behind your competition. And I can attest to fear being prevalent as well in the design schools. I think a lot of people are fearful of entering the industry today with all of these developments happening around us. How do we manage fear in the design industry? I think is an interesting question, because it feels like designers are tackling fear very differently from a lot of other creative sectors. You rarely see writers talking about how good they are at using large language models, for example. But we see this in design. Yeah.
Very good question. Since this is the last question, we'll have several people answer it. Yeah, Martina, you can start.
I just want to say, been working with the creative sector for over like 10, 15 years now. No, designers are not the only one being worried about this technical development. It's attached to the whole part of the creative sector, of course. And it's normal. We're going to a technical transformation that hasn't been seen any time before. So that is natural. And of course, people will work with different things in the future. Of course, as it always has been when it comes to technical development. This time it goes very much faster, I would say. That is the biggest difference. And it's much more, integrated in ways we cannot predict now. And and the time, the speed, limit of speed, I would say.
Yeah, I give the mic to Dante. Dante, are you scared? And also, now that you've been working for a while and you've had a lot of interns, you still keep having interns in the studio. And should they fear that they will all of a sudden not be needed anymore?
Well, yeah, so the philosophical question requires some philosophical answer, right? And I think my perspective, and I think it's a perspective coming more from my heart in that sense, is that, we are sitting here today and we're kind of questioning artificial intelligence, and we're asking what areas are we allowing it into. What about the aspects of empathy? What about the aspects of having models overseas and getting bias that is from another, country or from another intent? Is I think where we have to come to a certain point where we also have to question the human intelligence. And that's where, for me, it becomes a lot about this coming back to the local thing again. So, the human shape and form that we are in is in its essence kind of designed to relate to a relational context of 200 people, right? That's the number that they at least have assessed. But with the globalization of today, we are relating to things on such a vastly larger scale than that. And that also boils down to our objects, right? And that's the world we designers live in. We live in the relationship between a human and an object. And I think coming back to the local things is where, the fear that you're talking about here is because we're stepping out of our nature. We're stepping out of the scale of what we are made for. And I think, that's what we are hoping for, these local things to come through. And what do we need for that? Yeah, we need to find ways for local manufacturing, the additive manufacturing. We need supply chains to kind of become more oriented around the things that we are actually touching in our everyday life, right? And also the thing about, I think the bias question that you were talking about with the edge computing, that we now can maybe have an option to decentralize this technology a little bit more. It all comes back again to the thing okay, we need stuff that serves the perspective of our own, our own perspective. And that can only truly be achieved when we focus more on the things that are shoulder to shoulder, the guys that are in this room. So that's the philosophical answer, I guess.
And with that, yes, you get 2 sentences to round off this event.
So all I need, 2 perspectives, student perspective and the leader one. I think for the student, there is a unique opportunity and excitement to find your path. The older people here, maybe when you were breaking into the industry, CAD was new, and then you brought that to the table with a new edge, perhaps. Then second perspective, the leaders. I think the leaders now have responsibility to rethink learning for their junior employees. Now you also have an opportunity to rethink this thing. Maybe earlier all the juniors were coming in and doing manual 2D sketching. But now you have the opportunity to put them onto something else. And this is a creative task for all the leaders out there to figure out. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that brings us to the end of this. And Before I thank our speakers, I really would like to thank the AI Sweden team that has been really supportive. So thank you to everyone here, the production team and the organizers, and also to Victor from Skissernas, who's done an excellent job in supporting us today. So thank you so much for that. And for, applause for them. And thank you so much, everyone who joined today. I really want to say it's been great that we got so many people here, and hopefully this is something we can do again. And make sure that you check out the activities from Recreate, because you might be able to participate or contribute in some way. So we look forward to hear from you.